Okay, so so first, before, as a way of introduction, right? Today's Tzom Gedalia. Tzom Gedalia, as we were talking, mentioned yesterday, but I want to conclude. We were talking in the Shabbos Shuvah drasha, right? That Tzom Gedalia is interesting in terms of the Tanaisim, that it's not directly connected to the four Tanaisim that have to do with Churban Abayis, and that is because the death of Gedalia ben Achikam is equal to the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, and so we mourn the death of Gedalia ben Achikam on the same level as the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, right? So that's what we were saying yesterday, and so the Zohar over here puts together the two parts that we were discussing: the avodah of Yom Kippur and death of tzaddikim. And it says, "Lamadnu shomer Rabbi Yossi." We learn from here that Rabbi Yossi says, "Tiknu chachomim likreis b'Yom Kippurim parsha zu," that chachomim were misakin that we should read on Yom Kippur this parsha. Which parsha? He's talking about. This is the Zohar in the parsha of Acharei Mos. Kedei lechaper al Yisroel begolus, in order that we should atone for Jews in Golus, right? So you should atone for Jews in Golus. Golus is what? Is when we don't have the Beis Hamikdash. We don't have the Beis Hamikdash. We don't have the Sira Mishtaleach. So in order to kind of somewhat, to some degree, overcome that lack, we read Parshas Acharei Mos. Uba'avur zeh nisader loimer seder avodas yom hazeh b'yom kippurim. So that we, because of this, during our prayers, we put together the order of the avodas yom kippurim as part of our prayer service. Again, because we were saying yesterday in the Shalom Forum Sifasenu that our saying about something or learning about something should be equated to us doing it. But then it adds on this additional point, because also the death of Bnei Aaron, because the parshas of Acharei Mos, the parshas of Avodas Yom Kippur, is introduced with Acharei Mos Bnei Aaron, after the death of the sons of Aaron. Right? What's the connection? So the connection the Zohar that is making is that just like the Avodas Yom Kippur is mechaper, so too the Misas Tzadikim is mechaper. Mekan lamadnu kol odom sheriboyno sheleach olav yisurim. From here we learn, the Zohar says, and I'm reading in Hebrew, this is not the original Aramaic, kol odom sheriboyno sheleach olav yisurim, any person that his master sends in him yisurim, kapora al chatoivhem, they are kapora, right? Again, like we were saying yesterday. V'chol mishemitztayer al yisurei tzadikim, but so too, if a person is himself feeling bad for the yisurim of tzadikim, right, and also their death, ma'virin es chatov min ha'olam. They remove, his sins are removed from the world, right? So here, when a person feels tsar for misas tzadikim, right? So that's an additional element of kapara, like we were saying yesterday, that has the element of kapara, atonement. We're saying there's a level of atonement that tshuva is not enough. You need either yisurim or you need misa, really destruction of the previous state, the destruction of the previous existence. So the Seira Mishtaleach was that virtual destruction, virtual death through the Seir, which we don't have today. So, but there is an element that is very comparable, and that is the feeling bad, feeling tsar over misas tzadikim, which is why we read Parshas Acharei Mos that has two kind of two things in one. It has the avodas Yom Kippur, and it has the misas of Nodav ve'Avihu. V'alkein b'yom zeh koyer Acharei Mos shnei bnei Aaron sheyishma ha'am, that everybody should listen v'yitztaru al misas tzadikim v'yichuper lehem chatosim. Okay. So it continues, anybody who feels bad for the death of tzaddikim, or he sheds tears upon them, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decrees and he says, okay? So, and there's more, but right, so we see this idea that the two things are connected, that kapara, atonement, which comes from the avodas of Yom Kippur, can also be achieved through us having tsar through misas tzadikim. So today, I think it's not coincidental that the Tzom Gedalia falls out on Aseres Yimei Tshuva, because It's part of that cleansing process that we are going through. So today, this that we're fasting for the death of Gedalia ben Achikom, it's part of this Aseret Simei Tshuva. It's part of the kapara of Aseret Simei Tshuva. Okay. That's just a form of introduction. But now I want to go back to what I consider, to me, is really one of these very fundamental ideas that I my students in school, they hear me mention this all the time, and I probably said many times over aspects of these ideas, but hopefully today, if I have time, we'll put it together as it pertains to our avodah before Yom Kippur. And the question I want to know, famous question, simple question: why was it? What is the reason? Let me say, what are we? Who are we? I look myself in the mirror. What do I see? Who do I see? What am I? Okay, and I mean, we have a tendency to think of ourselves as this body, this thing, this body, right? And the funny thing is that technology, the more technology that's coming around, the more we separate kind of our mind from our body, and we realize that maybe we are not this body, okay? But what are we? And if we're not the body, so the question becomes, why did Hashem create this physical body? Okay? And that's the question that I want to focus on today. And I think it's a very basic question. I think to understand this phenomenon of what exactly am I, you have to understand one simple word. The word is abstraction, right? And I think I've spoken about this before, but the word is abstraction. What does the word abstraction mean, right? What does the word abstraction mean, right? We have abstract art. What does that mean, abstract art, right? So, I remember when Donnie was like, 6 or 7, and I showed him a picture of like Jackson Pollock, if anybody knows what that is. It's like just paint splattered all over a canvas. And I told him, yeah, this painting was sold for like $65 million or something like that. And then he was like, oh, I'm going to be rich, So what's supposed to be? I don't know. Again, I'm not here giving you a lesson abstract art. But what is the point, right? So what is it? So the definition of the word abstract means removed from substance, from physical substance, not having real physical substance. Abstraction means something removed, right? Something, an idea is abstract, right? So for example, let's say this stender is brown, right? This stender is brown, which you can't see on the camera, but here it's brown. This stender is brown, right? Now, have you ever seen brown by itself? Have you ever seen the color brown by itself? The answer is no, you have not ever seen the color brown by itself. You may have seen a sefer that's brown, you may have seen the ground that's brown, you always have seen some kind of an object that's brown, but you've never seen the color brown by itself. It doesn't exist, because it has to, even if you have paint, it's brown paint, it's still brown liquid, it's still brown entity. But our human mind is constructed as such, is that I could see the brown stender, and I could abstract, I can divide it into different parts. I can see the wood of the stender, I can see the shape of the stender, and I can see the color of the stender, and then and those are separate ideas, separate concepts in my mind, and I could, then abstract them. I remove them from the physical entity, and I can apply them to whoever I want. If I want to see, a brown car, I could imagine a brown car. Even if I've never seen a brown car before, I can easily shift one idea, connect idea, transpose ideas. That's what a human being is, right? A human being, his intellect has the ability of abstraction. And the more abstraction, the greater it is. Anybody, right? If you know a little bit computer science, right? Computer science is, we have like abstraction upon abstraction upon abstraction. The basic, logic gates is just, plus, minus, whatever it is, right? You have these basic logic gates, and you put these logic gates together, and they have new logic gates, and you create new levels of abstraction. Yes? Okay. So there are two kinds. So there's a reality, right? There's the physical reality, right? That's the brown stender. That's the physical reality, the entity that exists in the physical world. But then there is kind of the virtual reality, which is the reality of the ideas that this Stender is the vehicle for, right? It's the idea for the color brown, it's the idea of the shape of the Stender. There are all these ideas. So the Maharal's language, these two things are called a Chomer and a Tzura, right? In the Maharal's language, he talks a lot about these two things. The Chomer, which is in the Hebrew word, the word Chomer means right, but it means like glina, or like dough, not dough, play dough, like clay, right? Chomer is like clay, so it's something that you could shape. It's something that it itself is shapeless, but it can be shaped into any form you want, right? That's what clay is, right? Tzura, on the other hand, the word tzura means form, right? That's the form that the clay takes on. The tzura by is doesn't exist really. It's the shape of this shapeless thing called a chomer. But once you put it into a shape, then it takes on a reality. It takes on an existence. It becomes real only because it was shaped into that shape, and it doesn't really exist. It doesn't really exist. It only exists again as a conception, as an idea. Okay, all right. Similarly, again, just to illustrate the point, if I ask you to draw a picture of truth, right? You can't draw a picture of truth because it doesn't exist. It's only an idea. It's a concept. You can draw maybe a certain expression of it. You can draw a picture of somebody telling the truth. You can write the word truth. You can only draw some kind of, because you're using physical expression. You can only express physical expression. You're using the physical tools. So you can only express something that's conceptual using the physical tools that you have, right? And that's what really, art tries to do. Art tries to express some kind of feelings. Here's a feeling of happiness. Here's a feeling of sadness. Here's some kind of all of the only thing that the artist is trying to do is he's trying to express some kind of a concept, some kind of an idea, some kind of a feeling onto a tangible material, right? Onto a tangible material. So if you think about it, this is what a human being is as well. If you think about it, when we say that we are Tzelem Elokim, is we say that Hashem took us, this physical form, and created this physical body, this physical face, and the unique thing is that every person is a unique face. I mean, there are all these billions of people in the world, and yet every person represents, when you look at a person's face, right away you have a certain feeling about that person's personality. What is that person like? Right away you have certain impressions, right? Where do these impressions come from? If you look at a person's shoulder, you're not going to have any impressions, but when you see a person's face, right away you have a certain impression about that person's personality. Is he a tough person? Is he a softer person? Is he an outgoing person? Is he an energetic person? Is he a low energy person? You have certain feelings as soon as you see. I mean, they're not always true. They're not always right, those first impressions. But for some reason, you right away have impressions whenever you see a person's face. And why is that? Why should that exist? Right? Why should that exist? So, but the answer is, so let's think about it this. Let's say you learn a pasuk, right? So we learned this Shabbos, we learned the pasuk, right? Shuva Yisroel ad Hashem Elokecha ki kashalta be'aveinecha, right? And the word ki kashalta be'aveinecha, that you stumbled in your sin, we saw two interpretations. We saw the interpretation of Chazal, that kashalta comes from the lashon making it, doing something by mistake, by accident, and avain is a mazid, is an intentional sin. So ki kashalta b'aveinecha was an expression of doing something. So it was really a paradox. It was doing something unintentionally intentional, like doing an intentional sin unintentionally. So it's a paradox. It was a contradiction from which the Chazal learn that the drasha of that a tshuva is able to transform an intentional sin into an unintentional sin, right? That's a drasha that the Chazal learned. We saw Rav Shimshon Hirsch's explanation that kashalta means just you fell down. You fell down from as a result of your sin. You stumbled and you fell upon, right? That's a simple meaning. But again, so here we go, we have the same thing. We have the Torah. And we all know that there's something called Shivim Panim LaTorah, that there are 70 faces to the Torah. How is that possible? It's possible in this very illustration that I'm saying. We have one phrase, Ki kashalta b'aveinecha, right? You stumbled in your sin. And we have, the phrase is, everybody agrees what it says. We see the letters, we see the phraseology, we see the body of the text, right? And yet at the same time, we can use that same body of text to connect different ideas that body of text represents. We have the letters, that's the physical body of text, and yet there are layers of meaning, and it's just two that I'm sharing with you. When we have the idea called Shivim Panim LaTorah, there are 70 layers of meaning within this body of text. Right? Now, obviously, once you have a certain body of text, then all the 70 meanings will be somehow connected to the body of text. Right? Bereshis Bara Elakim is not going to be in the Ki Koshalta B'aveinecha, because that's a different body of text, right? The ideas that this body of text will carry can only be carried by this text, right? In the very same way, right, taking our parable, right, the very same way, each person is a certain body of text. Each person is a carrier of ideas. Each person is right, and if we were to able to see ourselves, not the way we see ourselves in the mirror, but if we were to really see ourselves the way Hashem sees us, right? The way we are in reality, which is our true reality. We are very confined human beings. We only see our three-dimensional, very physical space. We can't even see ourselves in time, right? We can't even see ourselves in time because me 6 months ago is not me today, right? I mean, it is me. Psychologically, I understand that it's the same person 6 months ago that did whatever he did, whatever mitzvah he did 6 months ago, that's me as well, right? But Hashem can see us 6 months ago and today in the same photograph, in the same picture, right? He can see us in the same picture, and that's only just throwing in the dimension of time in there. What about all the other oilomos, as they say, all the other dimensions, right? So what are we? What we are is not what we see in the mirror, and it's not even our totality of time. It is our complete being. It is our complete being that includes the entire chain of who we are. And most of it is in the Ruchnias. Most of it is not here in the physical world. Most of who we really are is in the world of Ruchnias, right? And that's why, we were talking, that's why maybe there is a minhag. There's a minhag that to light a candle for every person. It used to be for every person. The Mishnah Berurah says maybe it's only for married men. So to light the candle, not just for Yortzeit candle like we light for the deceased, right? There is a minhag to light a candle for the living on Yom Kippur as well, right? Why? So Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan says that the reason why Hashem had to create the human being as in a physical form is because every spiritual idea, right? Like we know, we've learned from first grade, second grade, that malachim can only do one single job, right? So malachim are by definition spiritual beings, are by definition very simple creatures. They are one singular. They have singular creatures. They have one thing that they can perform, right? So really, all of those things that we were talking to now, all those concepts, abstract ideas, they are also singular. They don't mix well with other concepts. However, if you attach all of those concepts to a body, to a physical entity, to something that can carry all of those concepts in one, so then they can be connected. So says Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, the reason why Hashem chose to create a physical entity called the human being is because that physical entity is actually carrying all of those ideas and concepts, and that all of that quote unquote tzelem elokim that he's supposed to carry are all connected into that pshat, into that body of text, right? So again, so just like in the body of text, we have the pshat, and even within the pshat we have multiple layers, and each extra letter symbolizes another idea, and each word choice symbolizes a third idea, and the sentence structure can symbolize a fourth idea, and the nekudas can symbolize another idea. There are so many different ideas that can be embodied in just one pasuk in the Torah, right? So too, every human being is what we are is not what we see in the mirror, because we are decaying. Look, I mean, yesterday we looked at one way, and 50 years from now we're going to look a totally different way, and so we are at almost like such a small percentage of who we are is this body, right? However, much more of who we are is the kind of the combined effect of what we are all about and the ideas that this body is carrying. So as I was saying, so Rabbi Schneider told me that the reason for lighting a candle on Yom Kippur for all living beings is because it's the letters are ner, psila, and shemen. Right, the three components of candle is ner, the vessel that holds the candle, the shemen that goes into the vessel, and the psila, which is how do we say psila in English? The wick. I'm sorry, the wick. It's interesting, by the way, the word psila in Russian is fitilok, which is petila, fitilok. But anyways, so the wick, right, goes, and then you could light the candle. So just like so that's why human being is always compared to a candle, because if you look at a candle, you have the physical entity of a candle, you're lighting a fire, and then onto this small physical candle, right, you may have a large flame of fire that's going upwards, because the fire symbolizes all of our spiritual aspects, and the candle symbolizes our physical self. And it is with the connection of that psila, with the connection of that wick, that you can attach a whole bunch of fire. So similarly, again, Rabbi Kaplan explains that this is all of our spiritual essence is connected to this wick, which is this physical body, right? Okay, so so we're talking just foundational things. I think these are maybe foundational things of what a human being is. How do we perceive a human being? So this body, when I look at the mirror, the only thing that I see is I'm not really seeing me. I'm really seeing the vessel, the vehicle through which me is supposed to be expressing. I'm not seeing myself, I'm seeing what I am supposed to be, just the thing that's supposed to carry me, the thing that's supposed to carry what I represent in this world, all of my opportunities in Avodas Hashem, which is why Pirkei Avos tells us that the first thing to get away from Aveira is remember that me'ayin ba'asa la'anat ha'hoylech, right, ulufnei miyata din v'cheshbon. And just like we say on Yom Kippur and Asana Toikef, right, we have 8 different expressions that we are tzel oiver, right? We're cheres anishbar. We have all these things that are temporary. We're just a temporary connection of molecules in order to be able to carry all of these incredible, amazing spiritual things that we represent, all of the chesed that we inherited from Avram Avinu, and all of the emes that we inherited from Yaakov, and all the discipline that we inherited from Yitzchak Avinu, all of these things, and again, and all of the Torah knowledge that we represent, for all of the ideas, all of that is just carried on by this temporary being, which is this temporary human body, right? Now, let's now take it to the next level. If you realize that Hashem sees us not just, again, this picture, the way I am today. He sees me today and yesterday and the day before and through my whole life. Let's just take this year, right? From last year to now, there's this picture of this one snapshot of me in the complete year. And during that year, there were some good times and there were some bad times. There were some days that I, did mitzvahs, right? And so I I was able to use this projector, this body, to bind, so to speak, another level of flame onto this wick, to light the flame a little better. And then there were times when I didn't, or either I misused the body for the wrong things, or I didn't take the opportunity to bring out more spirituality. During the course of the year, I had different times, and every time I did, we all did, when we did something inappropriate that we shouldn't have done, we created a distortion to our who we are, right? We did every act that we do, it is part of who we are. I mean, again, the way Hashem sees us, yes, we're going to say, of course, I'm going to say that, well, when we come to Yom Kippur, and we're going to express through vidu that this is what we did, and what we are trying to accomplish is to say that, but this is not who we are, and this should not stay as part of our permanent photograph in Shamayim of who this person is, right? That's the goal. The goal is, right? So now that, that was just introduction, but the introduction is that our goal is to create a picture in Shamayim of who we really are, right? In the most beautiful possible way that Hashem wants us. That Tzelem Elokim, to really bring that out. The Tzelem Elokim, the picture, the Tzelem inside the photograph. The Tzelem Elokim, that's the photograph that we want to present in Shamayim. And we do not want to present a photograph of all of the ugliness and the terrible things that we could have done over the course of the year. And Hashem gives us this cleansing process called Yom Kippur to be able to, again, to really see who we are in Shamayim, to really, and to fix that picture up, right? To see. So I always go back to this, again, we started with art, so in, there's a very famous story by Oscar Wilde called The Picture of Dorian Gray, right? And in that picture, in that story, right, there's a beautiful young man who's being, and it starts out, the portrait of him is being painted, and the portrait is so similar to him that somebody cries out to say that, wow, I wish you could stay like this forever. And so he kept this pictures take, and so this young man, was a very innocent, beautiful young man, he takes this picture home, he hides the picture up in his closet, and then the rest of the book he does any possible avera imaginable. And the idea is, right, that whatever a person does would reflect on his body, right? But this person doesn't change. He remains this youthful, innocent person until all of a sudden he dies and they discover the picture somewhere in his closet. And in the closet you see the ugliness of his life is actually in the picture, whereas kind of his soul was transferred onto the painting, and so all of the ugliness of his life was apparent in the painting, but it was not apparent in the person. That's the gist of this book. But it's very, it's a very telling idea. It's a very good idea, because that's what is really happening. That's what is really happening. Maybe not in the physical. Maybe our body does not so perfectly reflect all of our actions. But in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He can tell us. He can tell us. Oh, you see that cell, or you see that little whatever it is, little machine. Wrinkle, you see that wrinkle? That wrinkle is because of this, and that little white hair is because of this. And Hashem can see exactly, there is the body of text, that's who we are, there's the body of text, and then there is all of those things, all of the drushes, and all of the ideas, and all of the actions that we did with this body of text. It's all written here, it's written. It may not be written, again, in the physical material, but it's there. It's just you have to have the eyes to see it. And most of the time, really, unfortunately, people are an open book. We just can't. When we look at the mirror, we see mostly our good side. Other people can see us for much, sometimes more for who we really are. Can see or certainly our faults. They can see much better than we can. Right. So again. So my point is this. My point is this. Just to conclude, to summarize of what we learned was this, that we have to ask ourselves all the time who we are, not to be confused by the reflection in the mirror, because that's not who we are. What we are is the things that we stand for. And we should ask during this time of the year, it's our job to ask ourselves what is these abstract ideas that I really stand for? What speaks to me? Is it honesty? Is it self-honesty? Is it chesed? Is it patience? These are good qualities that should be projected instantly by this physical vessel that Hashem gave. And when I walk into the room, the picture is, here's walking Ish Chesed. This is an Ish Chesed or Ish Emes or Ish, whatever it is. None of this, today we're in a good mood, so we were patient with our kids. Tomorrow we're not in a good mood, so we're not so patient with our kids. A person who is Ish patience, he's patient all the time. He's patient on the tiniest, when he's hungry. He's patient when he had a bad day at work, right? But again, every one of us has each own unique qualities that we appreciate ourselves. So why not take an extra effort to focus on those qualities that we want to embody and actually internalize them, so that our vessel, this guf, is actual carrier of those good things that we're going to emulate Hashem. And so when the picture in Shemayim is, after Yom Kippur, the picture in Shemayim is, this is this concept, not this body which is just going to be buried. Okay, tzlach.